This is John Bailey, the epic voice of Honest Trailers, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls Podcast. It's a Fangirls Podcast with five-ish people. The tangents and squee will continue. Squee.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode 416. The Fiveish Fangirls Podcast. Iron Man. That's kind of catchy. It's got a nice ring to it. I mean, it's not technically accurate. The suit's a gold titanium alloy, but it's kind of provocative, the imagery anyway. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls Podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like we do with the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Yay.
Hear the
Monday,
fireworks and the AC/DC.
Yeah. and now Justin Timberlake has put himself away for another year.
I changed that. I shared a Brian May picture on my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going that way.
And then there's me. I have the one with the girl putting a tiara in her house because it's my birthday month.
Yeah.
That works too.
Or the Mandalorians. This is the May.
There we go. Mm-hmm.
Options.
We've got
Thing
options.
for Maine.
Yeah.
So many things for me.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is I live in Indiana, so it really doesn't matter because for the next, 4 weeks is going to be nothing but race car driving.
Oh, that's right.
So that's where I'm at for the next month. So, anyways.
Vroom,
yes,
yes.
exactly. We've only been doing it for decades and decades and decades. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least you don't have to worry about a certain someone with their bird coming and trying to make mincemeat out of the cars.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yes, that's good.
Yeah. That is true. So. All right. So, news. Excuse me. Goodness. Not a whole lot, but reminder, the Gen Con event catalog drops on the 7th. So that's coming Sunday as we're recording this. So if you want to make your wish list and be able to register, you need to have a badge. So if you haven't bought your badge yet, you need to get on that. Otherwise, if you get your badge late and then you try to register for stuff late, then the stuff you want might get full and then you're going to be sad. And then you'll be sad. And we don't want people to be sad at Gen Con because that's the only reason you should be sad is because you spent too much money.
Mm-hmm.
So get on that. So there is that as far as conventions are concerned. And then speak and it shall come into existence. We mentioned Wish, the Disney animated movie, with Shalane's feedback last week. And then what did Disney do us? They gave us a teaser trailer for said movie. We were talking about, it's not till the end of the year. We probably won't see anything for it for a while. Bada bing, bada boom. And you've got Alan Tudyk as a talking goat.
Because of course you do.
Because of course you do.
And nothing says more than talking goat than Alan.
I mean, if you're going to have a talking animal sidekick in modern day Disney, it might as well be Alan Tudyk. He did it for Moana, kind of.
Yep. Well, he did
as much of a sidekick as Hey could be.
Right.
Well, and the chicken didn't really talk so much as but yeah, he still got credited.
But it's still Alan Tudyk. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
You want
Yes.
weird noises and gestures coming from your crazy-eyed rooster? You get Alan Tudyk.
Well, and Alan Tudyk is your crazy, off the wall, name it psychic. I mean, look at how many roles he's been cast in. Heck, even leading role where he's off the wall crazy. Resident Alien, which if you haven't seen, please watch.
Yeah.
It is good.
Yeah. So there you go. I'd like to think we were partially responsible for that trailer appearing, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yep.
And then
we tell you,
yeah,
serendipity.
Yeah, and then this you're gonna have to. Well, I've got it. We'll have it linked in the show notes, but it's not on any official channels because it truly is kind of a teaser because this is what the BBC likes to do with this. So this was never dropped on any official of like the social medias or even the official Doctor Who YouTube or even the BBC YouTube. This was shown like once on BBC One like Saturday night, and some people have managed to snag it and put it up on the interwebs, but it's not officially anywhere. So if you didn't catch it on TV Saturday night, then you didn't know that I didn't know this was a thing until
if you don't live in Britain and
right.
Watch Fiveish TV on a Saturday night.
Exactly. So they gave us it's an audio teaser more than anything because the imagery doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. At least I don't think. Nope. I don't think Venus flytraps are going to have anything to do with the 60th anniversary unless they're going to bring back the Vervoids. I don't know.
One would hope not, but
I mean, this is Doctor
Who and Russell T Davies we're talking about.
Yeah.
Gonna need a different
otherwise it's just random imagery. I mean, we see David Tennant, we see Catherine Tate, and then the audio is just kind of very weird, garbled. Thing is, you need to watch it and listen to it backwards, and then you hear the Doctor say cryptic, I hate that, and then you hear Donna say, why did this face come back? So Russell T Davies, I hate you and love you all at the same time. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So you not that you need to dangle the carrot.
Right.
But I appreciate the carrots, and at the same time, I'm very frustrated. Or maybe it's more like I'm a cat trying to catch the red laser light.
Yes, I think that's more apt.
I was like, I can't. I really want the red razor light, but at the same time, half the fun of the red pointer light is the chase. So,
where you think you have it, but then no, I don't.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll keep waiting until they decide to give us more, whether they decide to do like what they did with the 50th and wait till there's a big event like San Diego Comic-Con to really give us something. But even then, they apparently, when Stephen Moffat says don't share this, the audience actually listens. So I don't know.
I suppose so.
Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. Until then, we'll just keep chasing that red dot.
Pretty much. Nothing else to do
until it dissolves and turns into a blue box. So there is that. And then of course, it is the 1st of May, which means a new month, which means Book Club. Speaking of Doctor Who.
Yes, and on the paper that I have in my hot little hands, this month's book is The Return of Robin Hood, a 4th Doctor story. And our choices for June, they are all audio. I decided as long as Big Finish is going to be doing their lead up to the 60th, I thought, might as well pull some Big Finish. We have Light at the End, Dark Eyes Volume 1, Horror of Glam Rock, and Murder at Blackpool, or Death at Blackpool, excuse me. Those are your choices. Yeah, I kind of went heavy with the 8 Doctor and multi-Doctor, so.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
Death at Blackpool, that one's the first of a 2-parter, if I remember right.
It's very possible. It's been a while since I've listened to that one.
Yeah, I remember. Really quick.
So if you vote for that one, be prepared to vote for the second half of it next month.
Right.
Otherwise, you're left with a cliffhanger.
Right.
I'm searching to make sure because I'm like, I think that's true, but.
And if I remember correctly, I think either Horror Glam Rock or Death in Blackpool, I think Bernard Cribbins guests as one of the voice actors. If memory
you're
serves.
correct.
No iPhone. Blackpool is one word.
Yeah. It's one word in one place.
Yeah.
Yes. Blah blah blah. Let's see. Oh,
somewhere Jenna Coleman's going, yes, that's right.
Okay. It's actually okay. It is the beginning of the 4th series of the Lucy Miller, or the 4th one with the Lucy Miller.
Okay.
Okay. So it kicks off that series, and it's that series has a whole arc. Okay. And then that season series, whatever, ends with a 2-parter. That's how I was getting confused. So you're fine. It's just, you might as well go on and listen to the whole thing because it's Lucy Miller and she's lovely.
Yes, she is.
Like
twist my arm.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling.
The potential spoilers for next month's vote. Depending on how this month's goes.
True.
Oh,
Just
that's why.
saying.
Okay. That's why I was confused, because one of those 2-parters actually has a somewhat similar title, but I will not say that.
Mm-hmm. Now that you mentioned
not just spoilers. I mean, these have been out for more than 10 years, but also it's like it's complicated. I don't have the brain power to explain right now.
Wibbly wobbly chimey wimey.
Basically, yes.
We'll get to that whenever we discuss that particular line of arc of audios.
Yes.
Which I think it would be worth doing. So
they are good. I have listened to most of those 8th Doctor adventures, and they're good.
Good times.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So there
you
is that. And then, of course, in your feeds, we have the latest episode of Gold Standard of the Oscars podcast, where Jesse Jackson joins us to talk about the 2002 Best Picture winner, Chicago.
Nice.
Which, you know me, I love myself a musical, so. And that also means our next episode is Return of the King. Not that I'm excited about that or anything.
Oh, that'll be.
I have to wait to next week to record that one.
How long do you think that one's going to take you guys to record?
I don't know. That's a really good question. If any episode could potentially beat our current record, which is still Terms of Endearment, figure that out. It might be this, even though I'm pretty sure that Nick's, as far as the notes that he makes for us, won't necessarily be. We're going to assume that whoever's going to listen to this episode is going to be referring to the theatrical release, but you know that all of us are going to be watching the extended edition because that's the only version worth watching.
Well,
so extended,
of course.
stuff from the extended edition is bound to end up in the conversation. So
yes, that is
Who
very
uses
true.
the theatrical version? Like, don't think I've seen it since the theaters, honestly.
yeah. Even the last time I saw it in theaters, which was for a special event screening, they showed the extended version. So
Oh, nice.
even some of the theaters know that the extended version of Lord of the Rings are the only versions worth watching. So
they know their audience. They know who they're marketing these events to. So
Yes.
good job. Whoever plans those things, you know what you're doing.
Yep. So there is that. And then over on our YouTube channel, if you've not wandered over there recently, is I put up a video with highlights from Lexington, from my most recent con adventures. Now, if you want the whole full vlog of seeing our hotel room and all the mundane stuff in between the convention stuff, you have to go to my channel to watch that. But if you just want the convention highlights, you can watch the video on our channel.
Either way.
Is that. Yep. All right. So feedback. Some feedback from Shalane. And she says, I enjoyed this season of The Mandalorian. I'm glad we got more Bo-Katan. She's my new favorite female Star Wars character after Rey, Leia, and Ahsoka. And yes, Grogu stole the show again. I also have a Bo-Katan Disney-bound shirt. That's cool.
Cool.
You know, it's kind of funny that a lot of people wanted to be in Marvel films. Now people want to be in Star Wars films or TV shows. We got Jack Black, Christopher Lloyd, Lizzo, plus Ming-Na. I mean, in some cases, it's probably people that just want to be part of it to say they did because they are a fan. There's some people that they're actors and it's a paying gig.
Yeah. Well, you have to understand, Star Wars is that's a cultural touchstone for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
And so, the idea of being in a Star Wars thing, no matter what the role is, it's hey, it's a thing. I was in Star Wars. So
right. It's just we've all grown up playing pretend Star Wars verse with wrapping paper tubes and
oh yeah,
sticks as guns, spacers,
when it's snowing and you're driving down the road and you think, I'm going, I'm the Millennium Falcon going to light speed.
Oh yeah,
that sort of thing. There's it's just and so when they started doing new Star Wars, people are like, oh, I want to be in new Star Wars. Just to say I did it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or on the swing set with that glider that looks like a seesaw. You're pretending you're on a speeder bike.
Yeah.
That too.
Because I think for some people just so they could say they did it even if they're not recognizable in it in some cases. Like in the Force Awakens, when Rey gets captured and they're gonna torture her, one of the stormtroopers is Daniel Craig. Why would the at the time current James Bond want to be in a Star Wars movie where you can't even see his face unless it was just so he could tell his kids, hey, I was in Star Wars,
Yeah. Well, and at the time where he was James Bond, it's please don't ruin the magic of, oh, hey, what is James Bond doing in a Star Wars movie?
Yeah,
so that's probably why he was a stormtrooper, but you could, so it wasn't as obvious. In fact, there's a lot of people who had no idea it was him until you tell them, and you're like,
Then they're like, wait, James Bond is in Star Wars? Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
in a roundabout way, yes. So
I mean, if somebody offered me the opportunity, I would totally jump at it. I don't even care what all involves, because this is definitely one of those things where I just want to say I was in that. Yeah.
Yes.
It reminds me of there was, I think it was a Doctor Who Confidential when David Tennant was first the Doctor, and because he'd been on Casanova and RTD was over that, and he was like, I know you're doing Doctor Who. I want to be in Doctor Who. I'll just be I will totally just be like a Cyberman in the back, and I just want to be in it. Can I be in it? And they're all and not knowing that I think at the time they knew Christopher Eccleston was leaving, and they hadn't made that public yet, and I guess they were actually considering him to be the Doctor, and there he is on set telling RTD, I'll do any role. I don't care. It'll just be, a Cyberman in the back, or
you can put me inside the Dalek, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I don't care. You don't even have to see my face. And they're just like, oh, you sweet man.
Yeah. I think that's how David ended up in Big Finish before he ever even.
Yes, because
he was
actually
before Doctor Who even came back. He just happened to be there doing.
He was like, he's recording something, and they're like, they're doing Doctor Who down the hall, and he's like, really? And they like ran down the hall, like, can I be in it?
Yeah.
I will lend my vocal abilities.
Yes, you don't even have to pay me.
Yeah.
Well,
Little did he know.
I don't know if he said that. Little did he know. Like, holy cow.
Yeah. But it's not that they knew at the time Doctor Who was even coming back, so.
True.
This was pre-2005.
Oh, David Tennant, you wonderful, wonderful human being, you.
Yeah. Your wife is a saint.
She adores him. She does.
Yes. So funny. Let's see. And then she asked, what does this mean? What does it mean for Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man being on Disney Plus mean for Spider-Man and Sony? TBD.
Well, yeah. Sony is keeping...
Sony has allowed Disney to have streaming rights for those movies. That's the most obvious thing we could say, I think, with pretty confidence.
Some backroom deal somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody scratched someone else's back, and then they scratched the other guy's back, and I don't know. But yes, there's going to be... That is beyond,
I would say beyond just Disney getting the streaming rights, TBD. That's all there really is to it at the moment, because we don't know. Trust me, if I knew, I would have said something. I would have been like, actually,
so,
but we just don't know.
Find out when you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, she says, I can still ride roller coasters. Good for you, you young child. And I would love to go to Legoland and Six Flags. The only parks I've been to in the U.S. are Disneyland, Disney World, Universal Studios in Florida, and a state theme park called Lagoon.
Yes, that's our local, amusement park, theme park. It was, we used to go like once a year because we could get discount tickets through our church. And then they stopped doing that, and then the tickets got insanely expensive. But they have some really cool, really fun roller coasters. At least I think they do. Although there is one, because you can see the park if you go on the freeway a certain direction, and you can see it. And it was always like, oh, there's Lagoon. We want to go to Lagoon. We get so excited. Anyway, they built a roller coaster since the last time I was there, which was, forever ago. It's called the Cliffhanger, I think. Anyway, but it you go up this tower, and you can see it from the freeway, and then you go down, almost straight down, almost upside down, straight down, and then you go all over crazy. And I'm like, there is a part of me that 12, 13-year-old part of me that's like, I want to try that. And then there's that grown-up part of me that's like,
nope.
Yep.
Maybe.
No, thank you.
It's like, it's been so long since I've been on a roller coaster, and I'm like, I want to see if I can still do it, but at the same time, I'm like, am I going to without,
Like,
major back issues?
yeah, it's like Disney, give me Big Thunder, give me Space Mountain, Expedition Everest. Any of the Disney roller coasters are fine, but I can't do the Six Flags, Cedar Point, all those roller coasters anymore. Even just your description, just like, it's giving me palpitations.
No, I have not.
20-year-old me would have been all over that, but not 40-year-old me.
Fourth grade old me, when she went to Six Flags, we went to Six Flags and as a whole class, and I think it was at the Batman or the Aerosmith one that takes you upside down, you're in individual seats, and my friend and I were just like, Dad, you want to go for it, we're staying here. No thank you.
The one really freaky one that I actually like at Lagoon, it's called the Wild Mouse. And like you go, there might be similar ones other places, I don't know, but it's like you go up and then at the top it like goes back and forth, but it's this really sharp turn and it goes, and it like actually squeaks as you go. And because it's got
that's actually just a style of ride is the mouse. So yeah.
Well, like it was one that they had years and years ago, and then they had to take it down because it was a little dangerous. And then they revamped it and brought it back, and I'm like, this is actually really cool. I love it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. So, enjoy your youth, kids.
Yes, absolutely. Don't get old.
Yeah. Yes. I also have a soft spot for pirates. Yay, pirates! I want more space pirates, and I think that Han Solo is more of a pirate. Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Smuggler, pirate. I mean, Lando calls him a pirate at one point.
Yeah. Tomato.
Yeah.
This says, I also think Bryce Dallas Howard is a better director for the Star Wars TV series than her father directing the Han Solo movie. She needs a Star Wars film. I don't think her dad did a bad job with Solo. I think he got a little.
Solo was one that Solo was the Pass the Parcel movie because it was with Miller and Lord for a while, and then they had like all kinds of problems, and there were creative differences, which is sort of the buzzword that they say on all these things, and then they Lucasfilm fired them, and then Ron Howard came on to finish it and just kind of cobble it together what was left.
Yeah.
So I mean, and actually, it was fine. I didn't mind it. I thought it was a pretty decent movie. I think the biggest problem was that everybody was so ticked off after Last Jedi that they were like, screw this and screw this movie. So it had a lot going against it, unfortunately. So it's like, and all the bad press of, it's already, it's had this problem and this problem and this problem, and they fired the directors and brought on somebody else, and it was a bit of a mess. But there you go.
Yep. But I do agree with her that I think somebody should give Bryce Dallas Howard a Star Wars movie because I think she would kill it.
Well, and not cancel it, please.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at this point, it's like it's one thing to announce Star Wars projects. It's another, like, are they actually going to happen?
Yeah. That is true.
Maybe she can direct the Mandalorian movie that's supposed to be coming.
Yeah, really.
Eventually.
Somebody just stick her in a pocket, and when we get to that point where Mando and Grogu are moving to the big screen, she should be first on the call list. So, thank you, Shalane.
Yes.
For your feedback, as always. All right. Moving on to this week's main topic, which 15 years ago
Man
would have been
doesn't
a
seem that long.
crazy, would have been probably for a lot of people just an average Thursday evening, because you gotta love those Thursday night, late night showings of films. But 15 years ago, on an ordinary Thursday night, something amazing happened. Chauncey asked me out on a date. No, that is true.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy anniversary.
That is true.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
But what's more important, depending on how you look at it, is after he proceeded to ask me out, he went out with his friends to one of those late night Thursday screenings to go see this movie that people had been anxiously waiting for to see how it does, and that was Iron Man. Because technically Iron Man opened on May 2nd, which is the Friday, but gotta,
the movie industry, they've started fudging the release date because
it used to be it was midnight, because I remember going to see Star Wars Episode 2 at midnight. But since then you could go at like 7 o'clock on Thursday, so that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing for Guardians, seeing it probably Thursday evening, if not just during the day on Friday. So yeah, those Thursday night screenings are nice, and has come in very handy for a lot of the MCU movies for me, scheduling wise. But yeah, so Iron Man, if you watch the behind the scenes stuff, which I'm pretty sure is on the on the DVD, or at least a version of the DVD, it's also on Disney Plus. All those extras, there's the deleted scenes, but then there's also like behind the scenes like featurettes, showing like how they designed the Iron Man suit and how they got it to work, both with practical and with CGI and mocap and all of that. There's a lot of, there's also one where they're in post-production and they're like 3 weeks out from the movie needing to be finalized so they can have a red carpet premiere in mid-April. And Jon Favreau is just working away with all of his post-production folks, trying to get the sound mix right and doing color grading and making sure all the special effects are done. There's like 200 something visual effect shots just in this movie alone, at least. And it's really funny because you hear Jon Favreau talk, and they have the red carpet premiere, and everybody's talking to the press and how excited they are about it, and it's really funny because at one point Jon Favreau's like, it's we're taking a huge gamble here, because it was a very huge gamble. Now the idea of bringing Iron Man to live action had been around since like 1990, but they could just never make it work. He had been the idea of doing the character and had been passed from Universal to 20th Century Fox to New Line Cinema, and that was all before Marvel got the rights back in 2005, because back in the period where comic books weren't doing so hot, they'd hit a bit of a kind of a slump as an entertainment thing. Marvel was like, we need money, quick, sell the rights to all of our characters to whoever will give us cash.
Well, and in the 90s, because this was like the tail end of the 90s, like X-Men were huge, because you have this little thing called X-Men the Animated Series that everybody who had Fox Kids watched, and also Spider-Man was always a huge hit. So of course they sold the movie rights to X-Men and Spider-Man, and those movies from Fox and Sony did really, really well because everybody knew those characters. And so they started doing other comic book character movies with varying degrees of success. Looking at you, Daredevil and Elektra. But it's like they were trying. And so Iron Man,
Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four. I forgot about Fantastic Four.
Before Cap became Cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another one that was popular, I think, for the comics. I don't know, because I'm trying to think. There was an animated series.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, the Fantastic Four is the reason that Stan Lee became Stan Lee.
Right.
Because he was going to quit, and, you know, Joan, his wife, God bless her, may they both rest in peace, was like, well, you know, if you're going to quit, you know, since you still got to work between now and when you're going to leave, why don't you just do whatever the hell you want? And that's when he came up with that's when he put Fantastic Four pen to paper, and they became, you know, kind of America's first superhero family.
Well, and the funny part about that is like when you're not like trying to impress people and make a big deal of things, and so you can have success. That almost seems like when you find your groove, basically. So it's kind of funny that that's what it took for Stan to get into the comic, or, you know, make it big in comics, because he was ready to be just done. But so Marvel had sold off all those movie rights because those were the ones that were popular, were well known, and would make money. So those rights were worth something, and all these other, you know, Avengers, whatever, they were kind of I don't even want to call them the B team. They were like C, D, and E.
Yeah, I was going to say, in one of those featurettes, they referred to Iron Man as a B-level superhero, and I'm like, I think that's being a bit generous.
Yeah, well, they have to be nice in those you know, professional sorts of things. But I think most of us kind of know, like, yeah. I mean,
I was like, obviously, like, Spider-Man, the X-Men, and probably the Fantastic Four were probably the most well-known, with obviously Spider-Man still being the most popular. And I think that, you know, it back then, even though I was not a fan and probably wouldn't have known Iron Man from War Machine, but I probably would have recognized the Incredible Hulk, probably because of Lou Ferrigno. You know, and probably Captain America, I probably would have recognized. So I would say they were probably like B tier, because they were still characters that people would probably recognize, even if they don't know them that well. And they had some live action adaptation. Obviously, the series with Lou Ferrigno, there'd been some live action Captain America attempts. So,
not great.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say Iron Man was B tier superhero by any. I mean, I don't know what the Pulse was like 15 years ago, but just based on what I know,
because it seemed like there was a lot of, because I remember all this, because it seemed like there were a lot of, best way I could describe them is sort of throwaway superhero movies, because X-Men had done amazingly well. Spider-Man was amazing, no pun intended.
Yeah.
The Spider-Man was great, and, you know, we all rushed out to see that one. And so it kind of felt like all of these studios like, okay, we got to do our own superheroes, but it's not like what it became. It is not like it was not expected to really do anything. I mean, the big one that this is the thing about Iron Man, is in 2008, the big thing everyone was looking forward to was The Dark Knight, because it was Christopher Nolan Batman. He'd done Batman Begins, and that one didn't do as well in theaters, but it was kind of one of those that people discovered on DVD, and like, oh gosh, this is an amazing take on Batman, because you got to remember, the last Batman we'd had was Batman and Robin.
Bat nipples.
Yes. A bat credit card.
Bat credit card.
All that, yes. so people realize like, oh, like Batman is cool. So we're really looking forward to, you know, Dark Knight and Heath Ledger as the Joker, and that looked, I mean, because when Heath Ledger was first announced as a Joker, everyone's like, he's like in all the teen comedy, teeny bopper, whatever things, but
yeah, I'm sure people heard like Heath Ledger's name. They're like the kid from like, was it 10 Things I Hate About You?
Yeah.
Yep. And
I
Roar.
mean, I knew him from A Knight's Tale, and I was kind of like, maybe. But you know, then you saw the trailers and the previews, and then unfortunately we lost Heath Ledger. Definitely R.I.P. And then you see the trailers, and then like everybody was like, one of my favorite YouTube videos that came around this time was it's from a guy he called himself It's Just Some Random Guy, and he just did he would talk about the movies and stuff with the comic book character, the superhero action figures, and he would narrate it. And one of the things he did for The Dark Knight was basically that the Dark Knight was coming, and it was going to cure cancer, and it was going to you know, end world hunger and world peace, and you know, Santa Claus came out to see it, and it brought about the second coming, and like Jesus comes down and he's like, I'm going to start the rapture right after the 2:15 showing. I gotta check out this bad boy. It was hilarious, like that. And I wish he was still doing videos, because he just came up with some amazingly hilarious stuff. I might just drop the link in the chat and we can put it in the show notes. But yeah, so like Dark Knight, and Dark Knight was so huge. The anticipation was huge, and then here comes Iron Man, which is like, nobody expected it to do anything. Nobody really knew what it was, but then people went and saw it and were like,
yeah, because I mean, like they make this announcement. They make this announcement, and they're like, Marvel got the rights back to a good chunk of their characters in 2005. And then they were like, okay, we're going to make a new division. We're going to call ourselves Marvel Entertainment. So so people don't necessarily think of just the comic books. And people will think of us as more than just the comic books. We can do TV and movies and all the other things. And then they're like, okay, we've got to do a movie in the next, because like the contract they wrote to get like the license back, or like our characters back, and just with the distribution rights going to Paramount, of all people or all companies, they were under contract so that they had a set amount of time that they had to make something and release it, or the rights were going to revert back to whoever owned them before. So they were now on a time crunch, and
they were on the clock.
They were, they would get somebody to write a screenplay, or just a couple pages of a script, and they'd be looking at it and be like, okay, this kind of works. Let's, can we turn this into a full length script? And then that would fall through. And then they also trying to get directors, and they were trying to get this person. At one point, like, some people that have now had gone on to do other Marvel stuff got asked, and for whatever reason, like Quentin Tarantino got approached at one point, and he couldn't, it fell through with him. And eventually, for whatever reason, it worked out, even though technically they never really had a complete script. A proper script with dialogue. They had a script that had like all of the action stuff, like storyboarded out, but they weren't paying a whole lot of attention to the dialogue. So actually a lot of it's ad-libbed.
Which, knowing that, you go back and watch the movie, you're like, okay, yeah, I can.
Yeah, and Robert Downey Jr. really loved ad-lib. So it was very good at it. He kept Gwyneth on her toes. Quite, but yeah, it eventually worked out so that they had, some sort of script that they could work with. Terrence Howard actually was the first person to get signed as the cast, and he was actually the highest paid actor on the film.
Which is ironic given future events, but
And they started to fill out the rest of the cast. We're getting director of photography and costumes and all that stuff. And then they finally got the director, and this announcement came out that, hey, Marvel Entertainment, this new and improved Marvel, is going to make a movie with Iron Man. And I'm sure, the people that read the comic books and were fan of the character were probably like, oh, cool, finally. Going to see Iron Man in live action. Yeah, it's going to be directed by John.
All the Daredevil fans are just like, be careful, guys.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like,
hey.
Yeah, and then they're like, it's going to be directed by Jon Favreau. And everybody's like, wait, the guy that directed Elf? And then they're like, it's going to star Robert Downey Jr. And people are like, wait, he got out of jail?
Like the guy a few years ago who was, in the news for drugs.
He got out of rehab
and all that.
Yeah. So a lot of people are like, wait, what?
What's funny is I actually this is the thing about Robert Downey Jr. that people might not remember. So we got this little those little gift gag books that you get that have the lyrics to songs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had one. Doesn't matter what the song was, but it was making a joke about Robert Downey Jr. and it was a piece of celery with some sort of white substance on it that was probably sugar. But it was called this is the Robert Downey Jr. And I unearthed that many just maybe just a couple of years ago, and I was looking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he had drug problems. And it was
among
joke.
other things.
He
had a lot of problems.
That was the joke. It is, and it is. He is no longer a joke. But I think Favreau, it says in a couple of interviews, is his issues and his very public downfall, I guess, was kind of the impetus for casting him as Tony Stark, because
his story is very similar to the Tony Stark in the comic books.
They mirror each other. So RDJ doesn't have to act quite as much as you think he does, although he does.
Yeah.
He does it very well, but he's like, yeah, I get this guy. There is no, there, and it's almost, the whole thing where Tony gets, blown up and captured. It's sort of a metaphor for RDJ, which is amazing that he came out of it.
Thrown in jail and then put into rehab, and then thrown in jail and put into rehab.
And you're the butt of everybody's jokes, and you're in the tabloids. And I remember,
and he's been clean, for a long time, which is good.
Yes.
Getting out and finally getting work and getting the right people around him, meeting his wife Susan, who he's been with for seems like ages now, was good for him, and people giving him a chance, because he had a couple of minor, not blockbuster type roles. He did Good Night and Good Luck, which we covered on Patreon for Gold Standard. So he done some more artsy independent type movies, but to have him head this multi-million-dollar big superhero, people thought
were like, what are you smoking?
Really, you want to risk?
No pun intended.
I mean, he got paid scale, he got paid $500,000 for the first Iron Man movie, which is pennies for a movie of that size. But I mean, Robert, he was not in Hollywood's best, books. He was not in the good books for a lot of people. So, but Jon Favreau was all
fight to cast him.
Yeah. I mean, how much of a liability he was considered still at
and
the
that
time.
was that was the problem for a lot, because a lot of people actually did want to hire him, but the insurance companies would not insure having him on set and part of our production.
Yeah.
If something happens and he ends up in jail or injured or hurt somebody else, we're not covering that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and none of this absolutely is not to dog on RDJ at all. We are just
kind of explaining this
The
is
context
the
of the
climate
time,
in which,
yeah.
The
Right.
climate in which Iron Man was released. You've got, superhero comic book movies are not what they are now.
Mhm.
Some of them had kind of flopped. I mean, you had The Dark Knight, but that was like its own thing because Christopher Nolan. And it was kind of just, it didn't really seem like much. And
Right.
Iron Man was not expected to do anything. Like I said, The Dark Knight was going to be the big heavy. And the fact that Iron Man came out and it was kind of more of a word of mouth thing that people were like, "Hey, go see this movie. It's actually really good."
Mhm.
And Robert Downey Jr. is really good as the character, and he's funny and he's relatable, and
Make sure you
all
stay
these
till the
things.
credits are all over.
Yeah, the credits, and everyone's just like, "Whoa, they're doing this," and so it like, but the movie holds up on its own, even without the the bigger universe or setting up sequels or the MCU or anything. As a movie, it is, if you just had it by itself, it is very compelling and very just, people get it and people love a redemption story. And I know it kind of got dogged on because the villain, the big villain climax fight wasn't really built up that well, but that's because we were, watching Tony deal with his problems, become a better man. And the whole theme of the movie is proof that Tony Stark has a heart.
Mhm.
Yes.
But of course, it's a superhero movie. You got to have a villain. You got to have a big fight at the end, because you're building up to this thing. So it does kind of lack in that way. But I don't think people really cared because it's like, he gets to,
I honestly think
say, I am Iron Man.
Yeah, I honestly think because originally they were going to have the Mandarin be the big bad, and they just couldn't figure out how to make it work. And obviously, they still couldn't kind of figure out how to make it work for Iron Man 3. But
you tried. You got
but honestly, I think having Obadiah be kind of the big bad and having kind of like the big conflict being, Tony Stark goes through this just awful traumatic experience, that he had just, he had been living the high life, with drinking and women and partying and, just having piles of cash and having these fancy cars and all that fun stuff. And then he has this awakening, realizing while he's just sailing through life, what is happening in the real world to innocent people, and to have someone who stepped in after his parents died and Stark lost its head with, because when Tony was too young to be in charge when Howard died, somebody had to step in. So Obadiah steps in, and he's been in this, position, working for Stark and, alongside Howard and then alongside Tony once Tony got old enough for like 30 years. So he's supposed to be like the right-hand man. He's supposed to be someone that Tony can trust. And to have
a second father figure almost.
Yeah, and to have someone that Tony has put so much trust in to pull the rug out from under him.
Yeah.
Just goes to show just how clueless and how closed off to reality he actually has been all of this time.
Well, and Obadiah, he is running the company. Tony's just sort of the figurehead.
Yeah.
Because he's got the Stark name and all that stuff, and he does have the genius and all that sort of thing. So when Tony actually is like, "Hey, I'm making decisions and I'm going to do things," after we find out later Obadiah was trying to get him killed over in Afghanistan. But then, of course, Obadiah freaks out because he's like, "No, I want this company. It's going to be mine, and I just got to get this guy, this playboy out of my way because he's no good and he sucks. And yeah, he can invent things, but he's also too drunk and too horny function most of the time. And so that's where, the rift kind of comes from. And another big thing about this is like when this came out, the war in Afghanistan was, lots of people had friends or family who were over there in some capacity, or just over in the Middle East. And so that hit home for a lot of people and what was going on. And, and it was just sort of the right movie at the right time because of all the things that were going down. And when the movie came out, the 2008 crash hadn't happened quite yet. But it was kind of, people were paying attention, the writing was on the wall. So it just kind of felt like a movie that kind of gave people hope when it was kind of a bit thin on the ground in so many different ways. Or, it was a way for people to just kind of realize, like, hey, if this guy could pull himself out, maybe we'll be fine. And that kind of thing. So it's just there were a lot of factors going into it, and you realize that as much as Tony is like, he's the rich billionaire whatever, but he's
Genius
also
billionaire playboy philanthropist.
Yes, but he's also in a way he is the little guy, in that he has no idea how to be how to be an adult. He has no idea how to function in life because it's all just been handed to him and other people take care of stuff. Pepper shows up and calls a car and gets the ladies dry cleaning the next morning, and she goes and she just deals with all those messes. So like everybody.
Well, and even when he shows up to the fundraiser, and he and Pepper are dancing, and she's like, "What's your social security number?" And he has no idea.
And he has no idea. He cannot take care of himself. And so it's like that realization of, oh wow, I am at a big disadvantage, but now I see that I need to clean up, I need to change, I need to figure this out. So when I say like Tony is kind of the underdog in this, I don't like people be like, well, he's rich and he's this and he's that. It's like, well, yes, and even rich people have problems, so stuff it. But he does have that redemption arc. And I think there are enough people who are screw ups in their own way that want to see that and be like, oh, okay, well, maybe there is hope for me if this dork. But
well, and it helps it once a Stain aside, Obadiah aside, although Jeff Bridges is brilliant in this.
Yes.
Which he's not the dude by any means in this.
No.
It's
Dude's
funny
evil twin
though.
brother, maybe.
Yeah, it's so funny though because Jeff Bridges comes into it, and he's used to filming movies, even stuff like The Big Lebowski, with a proper script, and he really likes to have his lines down. So when he shows up on day one, he's ready to go, and he did not have that with this movie. But then, he gets there and sees the passion and realizes that, it's not so much about knowing all of your lines perfectly, that it's more than that. And what they were doing was potentially something really amazing. And he's like, yeah, once I made it in my mind that really this is a $200 million student film, then I was fine with it.
We're kind of seeing the basis of lightning starting to get formed and captured and put into that wonderful little bottle that's called Marvel.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like I said, if you watch the featurettes, I don't remember which one it is, but it's the one where they're in post-production and Jon Favreau, is getting ready to finish up and go do the red carpet premiere and everything. And he's like, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be successful or not, but if it is, it could be the start of something really big that could potentially change my life. And I'm like, dude, you have no idea.
Yeah.
The trajectory that this is going to put your life on.
Mhm.
You're going to be thanking yourself in like 5 years
Yep.
from then. So
And you're going to be dealing with the cutest little Muppet later
yeah.
on as well.
Yeah.
Little do
So
you
yeah,
know.
it really was there was not going to be an in between with this film from for most people's opinion. It was either going to be a huge hit or it was going to be a huge flop. And there was
Yep.
no in between. And it just turned out to be a big hit. I mean, it was a $140 million budget, which, even in 2008 seems like that's tiny for a superhero movie.
Yeah.
But it made almost 600 million in the box office, so I think they did okay.
Yeah.
And it's kicked off something that, they had an idea of potentially doing, this big universe where stuff is connected. Because I mean, Kevin Feige was involved from the very beginning. He was a producer from the very first. And that's what they tacked on that post credit scene with Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury, and they'd been not so subtly hinting that Shield was going to be important, with Shield being woven into the plot of this, although Shield never really is directly involved except Coulson. Shield obviously had been established in the comic books, and there'd even been a Nick Fury movie with David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury, which we're not going to talk about. And at one point in the comics, they changed Nick Fury from being kind of this curly haired white guy that kind of looks like David Hasselhoff to essentially looking and sounding like Samuel L. Jackson, with Samuel L. Jackson's permission. We've talked about Samuel L. Jackson. We drew his name out of the hat. And so when it came to actually bringing in Nick Fury into this version, they were like, well, it has to be Samuel L. Jackson. So, but to have him be like, Nick Fury, director, Shield, I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. But before, every time Coulson shows up, he's like, I'm with the Strategic Homeland Intervention and Enforcement Logistics Division.
Quite the mouthful.
It's not until the very end where he's like, just call us Shield. And I'm like, okay, finally. Bringing that in as Shield being there from the beginning. I mean, obviously Shield, we would learn as the MCU continues that Shield was founded in part by Howard Stark. So Shield is there because of Tony's father.
Boy, do you know you have a legacy or no?
Yeah, really. So bringing in characters like Nick Fury and creating characters like Phil Coulson, because Phil Coulson is a completely invented character. When Clark Gregg was hired, he didn't have actually a name. He was just called Agent, which is a nice callback to that in the first Avengers movie when Tony's like, his name is Agent.
Yes.
Because Coulson Clark Gregg was just supposed to be just this little bit part to kind of drop the idea that Shield is there in the shadows and is paying attention to what's going on. But he got there, and Clark Gregg being Clark Gregg, it immediately grew into this, a larger role and getting a proper name and giving us my favorite character in the entire MCU. So no offense to Tony Stark and Doctor Strange and all the others, but I love Coulson. I absolutely love Coulson. I'm so happy that it worked out that Clark Gregg was able to take this role, and they were able to take it and just turn it into this thing, with him also being in Thor And then, the couple of like little shorts, funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer, and the consultant, which is essentially Tony Stark going to talk to Thunderbolt Ross, and killing Phil, air quotes, killing Phil in the first Avengers, and then giving us Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which gave us a whole bunch of other stuff. So and there's still a version of Coulson out there, which is nice to think about. It's like the version the version that's introduced here, unfortunately, is now actually dead.
Right.
He did not die because of Loki. Well, he kind of did in a roundabout kind of way. He died temporarily because of Loki, and then as time went on, stuff happens. We've talked about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and eventually the injury because of Loki does come to rear its ugly head and takes Phil's life. But we have LMD Coulson that's still out there running around. So there's the possibility that we could see Clark Gregg pop up somewhere, which would be nice.
Never say never.
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, he pops up on the screen, and he from the start, knowing, seeing all of Coulson up until the end of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you see the Coulson that we're going to get to know even in this movie. I mean, his suits get better fitting as the movies go on. His very first scene, I'm like, dude, go get a better fitting suit. You have a better fitting suit in Captain Marvel. It's because the 90s, they were cut differently than the mid 2000s. So, but like, there's the one scene when Pepper takes him to try to figure out what Stane's doing, and her badge won't work. So then Coulson produces, the little thing that's going to blow up the door. And he's like, you might want to take a few steps back. So Pepper goes, turns her back to the door, puts her fingers in her ears because she knows an explosion's coming. Meanwhile, Coulson just crosses his arms and waits.
Yeah.
For it to explode. I'm like, you had this character down pat from the very first movie, dude.
all these subtle little things for that one cameo, and it was just like, yep, that's our guy.
Yeah, I was like,
we need more of this guy.
Yep. Like, just unflappable Phil. I love it. Just like everybody just took their, like, they jumped in with these characters, and they have just taken them, and they just kind of knew who these characters needed to be, even though at the time we had no idea where these characters were going to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to the writing or lack thereof, depending on how you will look at it, and the casting.
Oh yeah.
We've all heard the stories of, so and so was supposedly going to play this. Everybody knows Tom Cruise supposedly was going to play Iron Man at some point. Ugh.
He would have been too short.
Yeah.
Sorry,
it's like, you think Robert Downey Jr. short? You would have had to get, whole chicken coop of crates for Tom Cruise to stand on. Obviously we did have some changes. Terrence Howard got the boot.
Which is unfortunate, because I think he was the better Rhodey. Not to dump on Don Cheadle, but I kind of think Terrence Howard is a little better.
He has a few moments where I'm like, yeah, I can kind of see it, but there's a couple other times where I'm like, the chemistry doesn't seem quite right.
I think it was more he could like hold his own with RDJ a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and Rhodey's no, like, just like some random side character. I mean,
no.
In the comics, he and Tony have known each other for a very long time. Depending on what comic you're reading, the origin story of their friendship is a little different, but they've known each other for a very long time. And, obviously Rhodey is extremely intelligent in his own right. You don't become a colonel by, twiddling your thumbs. And, but yeah, there's just something about the chemistry between RDJ and Don Cheadle that even after watching it for like the bazillionth time, that he and Terrence Howard just did not quite have. There's something that Don Cheadle brings to Rhodey, and it's one of those things where it's like you can't really like describe it. It's just a feeling. But yeah, there are definitely some times where Terrence Howard was like, especially when he sees the other Iron Man suit and he's like, next time.
Yeah.
Heads up.
Of course, now it's all like, well,
man.
not for you specifically. For Rhodey, yes, but not for you, Terrence. So, but it's unfortunate with the fallout that happened between him and Marvel and all of it, because he, when this movie took off like it did, and they realized that if they wanted to keep Robert Downey Jr. as their Tony Stark, they're gonna have to pay him a hell of a lot more than $500,000.
Right.
And Terrence Howard went from being the highest paid person on Iron Man 1 to seeing his paycheck potentially get cut because they needed to pay the star of the movie more money.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and
supposedly he was the one that walked away. Supposedly. So that's on him. if that's actually what happened. I'm sure we'll never know, because it's all he said, they said. The truth is somewhere in the middle, I'm sure.
And it's kind of a moot point at this juncture anyway.
Yeah. Because so much time has passed, and Don Cheadle has cemented himself as the definitive Rhodey. So and it even people like Gwyneth Paltrow, who I don't really care for her as an actress. She's okay to me at best. But I think she gives Pepper, what I like with her, what she does with Pepper, even in this movie, and Chrissy, you were talking about, like the big, knockdown, drag out battle that's kind of the the climax of this movie. Tony and Stain were never going to be able to like beat each other.
Right.
So it was going to require an outside influence, and the fact that it's Pepper, just and she does occasionally get a little like flustered, kind of damsel-y, like, oh my goodness, and and she does that in Iron Man 2 as well. But at the same time, Pepper is she can be very assertive and doesn't default to helpless damsel in distress.
Well, you kind of have to have a pair to stand up to Tony Stark and not put up with his BS.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That being said, giant guys in giant flying basically mech suits trying to blow up your arc reactor, and you're right in the middle of it. Yeah, I'd be freaked out too. So it's
you could be freaking out and not be completely helpless is the thing.
Right.
And that's what she does, is she shows that Pepper still has emotions. Obviously, she's had to learn to have a really good poker face with Tony.
Yeah.
But it shows that, she does have feelings, and, is not stupid enough to think that, I can help with this too, when she doesn't necessarily have the technical know-how. Like some characters are wont to do, where they insist they need to be part of the solution when they don't actually have anything to give to the situation other than maybe a pair of hands.
That or
but in
become
this
part
case,
of the
that's
problem.
Yeah, in this case, that's what Pepper has. Is she has a pair of hands, but she's able to listen to instruction
Yes.
and push the buttons that Tony tells her to push, or reach into Tony's chest.
Yes.
And replace the arc reactor,
Yeah.
even if she does happen to pull out the little battery thing in the process.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So I will give her that. And obviously Pepper comes into her own and gets her own suit of armor and is totally there to kick ass in Endgame. So that's good. that's really good. So and in the process of directing and playing Happy, Jon Favreau lost like 70 pounds while making this movie, which is good for his health. So, and then of course, we got our first of what will be many, many, many Stan Lee cameos. Definitely more subtle.
Yeah.
The first couple times around. Kind of blink and you miss him. It's not until Thor where he's in the truck, he's like, did I get it? That we start getting Stan Lee with a bit more, with some lines and a bit more personality.
Well, and he's been doing cameos in a lot of the Marvel movies.
I mean, he's been doing cameos since like the Incredible Hulk was on TV. So
it wasn't
anything new for Stan. It was same old for Stan, but for us in this specifically, it became a thing. With this movie, they set the precedent for watch for Stan Lee. Where is he going to pop up? What's he going to be doing? Is he going to say something? Is he going to be doing something that's funny? Whatever. And then stay in your butt. Stay in your butt until the movie theater employees kick you out.
Right.
Or until the ads start rolling through.
Yeah.
On the big screen, because that means, yep, we're done.
Yeah. The lights are fully back on at full brightness. There's people with brooms sweeping up popcorn off the floor. Now it's probably safe to go.
Yes.
Which I wonder how many people missed this very first one, because it's not a mid-credit scene, it's a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And
so you had to sit through all of the credits to see Nick Fury pop up.
And people were not accustomed to waiting through the credits, especially if you have kids or you're at a late showing, like, oh, time to go home, and unless you knew that there was something, because it's just, it happened, but not as frequently as it does now.
Yeah. It was, and usually those types of scenes were usually done just kind of for like fluff.
Yeah. So it wasn't.
They didn't have anything to do with like the plot. I'm thinking of like Ferris Bueller. It's like, you're still here? Go home,
Right.
It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie or the plot or anything. It's just, it's a funny thing. Here's Ferris Bueller telling us go home. Yeah.
Or it would be a blooper reel of all the flubs.
Yes.
That happened earlier.
Yeah.
Grumpy old men and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So to have something where you had to wait through all of the credits and then have it to be something that's not fluff by any means, but setting up something huge
for later on down the line.
Down the line is it was unheard of.
Yeah,
absolutely unheard of. So
they're like, wait, I actually have to sit through this, but I gotta pee.
Yeah, that's when you learn. You're going to a Marvel movie, limit your liquid intake.
Yes. I mean, those credits are long enough. You can go use the restroom, and then come back.
Yeah, because more often than not, if there's going to be any sort of credit scene, it's going to be mid-credit. So you'll get your fancy-looking credits, which we get with most of the Marvel movies. And then there'll be something. And then there may be another one after this boring scrolling white font on black background credits. And, off the top of my head, I think a lot of those post credits aren't necessarily something that important. Those tend to be kind of the funny ones. And then you have like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where James Gunn decided we needed to have 5. And then so you were stuck in your seat, and there, if you got up to pee, you were gonna miss something. So, which nobody has done that since. And from what I heard, for those listening that are going to go see Guardians 3, speaking of Guardians, later this week, there's only 2. So you don't have to worry about there being like 5. Like with Guardians 2, there's only 2 from what I heard, from what I have read, and that's supposed to be out of James Gunn's mouth, is there's only 2. So
Okay.
So plan accordingly, plan your liquids accordingly for that. So but yeah, it's just for me, it's like part of me wants to say I can't believe it's been 15 years, but at the same time, I did not jump on the train right away. I didn't really fully jump on the train until the first Avengers movie, which would be 4 years after this.
That's kind of the way it was with me too. I remember watching Iron Man on DVD as a rental, didn't see it in the theaters. Hulk, saw Thor, but that was DVD. Iron Man 2, same thing, but then it really hit with the Avengers. I'm like, okay, yep, I'm in.
Yep. So for me, it was, when Chauncey and I first got together, and the movies would come out on DVD, and he'd try to get me to watch them, and I'd be like, whatever, and then we got into our senior project in undergrad, and it was, I've talked about this, if you go back like all the way to like the first time we ever talked about Marvel early on in the show, it's like in the first like 20 episodes, I think, of the show.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And I talk about, my undergraduate graduate projects, and they were both Marvel related, and I was building it all around at the time, what little we knew about the plot of Captain America, the First Avenger, and how Howard Stark was really involved with Captain America. And that was built into the plot of the thing we were creating. So, I was diving into like learning more about like the comics and some of the various tech that like Tony Stark had invented in the comics and all of this stuff. So then when we went and saw Captain America First Avenger, it was somewhat a research type thing, but I was like, this is really cool. And then we got the First Avengers, and I don't know what it was, but we got to the First Avengers, and I'm like, I love this thing. Give me more. Yeah. Like, Oliver, please, sir, I want some more. And I've been absolutely just like head over heels with anything and everything I like. And I've, if Chauncey was the master and I was the apprentice, I have surpassed him as far as the MCU is concerned. I surpassed him ages ago. I'm sitting here wearing my Stark Industries t-shirt, and my Stark Industries themed tennis shoes that Adidas released several years ago. So
Nice.
yeah, I have, and my car's name is Phil. So I think I have surpassed. I've surpassed Chauncey
Probably have.
a long time ago as my Tony Stark and Phil Coulson Funko Pops are looking at me. So,
Yeah.
but you know, it's
The student has become the master.
yeah. I mean, we could have known. We could, in 2008, 15 years ago, there's no way anybody could have predicted where this was gonna go. So
Yeah.
yeah, and even looking back, it's like you just kind of shake your head, like, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
This is it's like, you hear sometimes stories of people in their careers, or they reach a point in their life where they're like, they have choices, and some of those choices may seem safe, and that may the route you want to go because you want to remain safe, but then there's something else that, like, if you took the gamble and it paid off, it could be a really big payoff.
Yeah.
And this is one of those where they took a big gamble and it paid off in ways I don't think anybody could have ever been like, in 15 years, you're going to have like 31 movies and multiple TV shows, and it's going to be amazing. Disney's going to buy the rights, which is really funny when you think about it, considering that the charity event that Tony shows up to that he wasn't even invited to, which is weird. Why would he need an invite to his own charity event? It's the Tony Stark Foundation. His name is on it. Does he really need an invite? But it's at the Disney Music Hall. Like, little did you know, in a few years Disney would be owning you.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's like Disney would buy you for several $1 billion, but that's okay. Your ROI is gonna be really, really in your favor, and everybody's favor. The return on investment here, top notch. So, and you're gonna bring in all these characters. People are like, like we were saying at the beginning, like, Iron Man, really? And then years later, they're like, a talking tree, really? Yeah,
A talking raccoon?
a talking raccoon? Like, really? Those people, Guardians of the Galaxy, the talking tree?
Yeah.
That's where Ant-Man, really? Ant-Man. Paul Rudd
like
as Ant-Man. But every time, it's just been like, yep, this is it. Like, we're all like, that's the thing they're doing. Okay, I'm here for it. And then it happens, and I'm like, yep, I'm good with this. Bring it on. Give me all the things.
It's just interesting how things started and where we are now, and how it's gonna play out. But it all started
with a cheeseburger.
With a cheeseburger, which I always love that scene, because I'm kind of like, well, duh, of course he's been in he's been prisoner with some terrorists in the Middle East for, I can't remember how long they said it was.
3 years?
Like 3 months?
3 months.
3 months.
Oh, 3 months, okay.
3 months, and of course, he doesn't have very good food. He's in the dark. He's like fighting for his life. And the minute he gets home, he's like, I want a cheeseburger. Well, yeah. And like, cause I remember at the time people were like, really? He wanted drive-through? And it's kind of like, well, yeah.
What's more American than that?
Yeah.
What? I mean, maybe McDonald's would have been a bit more than
well,
Burger
there
King
was actually
it was product
RDJ's like personal Easter egg. Yeah, the Burger King, because he credits Burger King with him getting sober. Because he was out, he was out running around partying, drunk off his ass, high off his ass, got himself a cheeseburger, And because he was so altered, the burger was awful. He was, it just tasted absolutely awful to him because, he was so screwed up that he decided right then and there to take all the drugs he had on him and he threw them like into the ocean and decided to get clean. And he credits Burger King with that. So in a way, that is RDJ's personal Easter egg. Specifically,
thank you to Burger King.
That,
it's like
that it's American cheeseburger, and when you see him get out of the car, you can tell it's a Burger King bag. And then
I just remember there were articles that were just like, I mean, there were plenty of naysayers about this, as there are with anything, and it was just like, well, how dare he go for a cheeseburger? And it's just kind of like, are you just stupid?
I mean,
or
what could be more American than cheeseburger?
Right,
yeah.
What, fried chicken?
Yeah,
maybe, but that's hard. That's harder to take it because his arm was in a sling. So
Yes,
right.
that is true.
Harder
that
to
is
take
true.
in with you to the press conference.
Yeah,
that they wanted, but yeah. So no, it's an amazing movie. I mean, I feel like for me, it kind of, how do I explain this? It was sort of like those. Well, I didn't see it until Iron Man 2 was coming out, and people were talking about how they're excited for it. Like, well, I hadn't seen Iron Man 1 yet, so I went and got the DVD and like, this is a great movie, and I just kind of went looking online for just stuff about it, and I found a couple of blogs and fell into some groups online on Facebook and things. And one of those Facebook groups was actually belonged to an author that Jared was a follower of, and we hadn't met yet, but this author had written a couple articles just about it and some of the things that people were saying. And then, years later, Jared and I meet when I get the job up here, and we're just kind of like, oh, you're a fan of this guy. I am too. And, we kind of connected over that. So I don't know. I have a soft spot for these movies for partially for that reason. There were other factors involved as well, but I don't want to credit that. But it's just kind of funny to me when I think back about this, like, oh yeah, that happened and that happened and that happened. And it's just interesting. Also, they're just fun movies, and it really was something new and exciting at the time. So anyway, good times, good movies, good all the things, and holy cow, it has been
quite the
ride.
ride.
Yeah. Anybody else got stuff they want to say, or?
I'm sad Tony Stark's no longer with us in the MCU.
Exactly.
But...
Yeah.
I know. It's not. It hasn't been the same without him. But
I mean, I know RDJ said he's hung up the boots, but I'm just hoping that we might be able to convince him back to do a cameo for something.
Rumors always abound. It seems like.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll see something like, "Ooh, he's open to it," and I'm like,
"Yeah,
well, I'll believe it when
like
I see it." But
with Tony, there's some sort of like holographic diary or something
somewhere, yeah.
That they can do it so that it makes sense. So
Morgan will eventually stumble onto it somehow as she accidentally got into her father's workroom and got the helmet for Pepper's Iron Woman suit.
Yeah, who knows?
Something.
Who knows what'll happen? But well, there it is. Iron Man, you started it all, and thank goodness for you. But anyway, well, if any of our listeners want to chime in on their thoughts about the first Iron Man movie, like, when did you see it? What did you think? What did you, what was going on in your life at the time? Let's go with that. Or whatever, or just Marvel in general. Send us some feedback and we'll read it out on the show. Our email address is fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which has links to all our social media and things. And our website is thefiveishfangirls.com. You can leave comments on any of our posts, on our Facebook or Instagram, also on our YouTube. We'll treat those as feedback as well. So there's an option for you. You can also support the podcast with our Patreon and our merch shop. And we also have our nonprofit that is in full swing. And all the details, again, are on our website. So check all that out. And, thank you all for listening, for being there. We always appreciate, all of our many, many listeners, which I'm sure you're out there, and glad you're enjoying it. And take care out there. Be safe, be happy.
All right. With that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany and Bo just saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. If you dust me again and I'm not on fire, I'm donating you to a city college.
Thank you for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefiveishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.